Okay, welcome back, everyone. I'd like to turn our attention toward our keynote remarks and introduce our next moderator, Dr. Sanjay Reddy. Dr. Reddy is a clinical professor and hospitalist in the Department of Medicine who focuses on non-pharmacologic options for symptom management and is part of our Faculty Development Day Planning Committee. Welcome, Sanjay.
Hi, everyone. I have the pleasure today of introducing President Michael Drake. He was appointed the 21st president of the University of California in August 2020. He oversees UC's world-renowned system of 10 campuses, 5 medical centers, 3 nationally affiliated labs, more than 280,000 students, and 230,000 faculty and staff. Dr. Drake previously served as president of the Ohio State University from 2014 to 2020. Prior to OSU, he served in several roles at the University of California, including 9 years as the chancellor of UC Irvine and 5 years as the system-wide vice president for health affairs. An ophthalmologist by training, Dr. Drake received his AB from Stanford University and his MD and did his residency at UCSF, as well as fellowship time here and at Massachusetts Eye and Ear Infirmary. So we're delighted to have you with us today, President Drake. Thank you for making the time. And so please join me in welcoming Dr. Michael Drake.
There's Thank a very loud Dr. Reddy. Great. Thank you. I appreciate it. And nice to join you. We used to have a question we asked ourselves in the past. What was the sound of one hand clapping? You know, and it was but much like the sound of cacophonous applause from a computer screen. But very nice to see you and to spend this a little bit of time with this group. And what a great thing to do. I remember my own days as a new faculty member and then through the ranks here, and the level of focused faculty development that we had tended to be a conversation in a hallway that you could find with somebody from time to time. And I remember those conversations and they were very, very helpful, but it's great to be able to get everyone together and have a larger conversation. So I'm very pleased to do this. I think it's a very important thing, particularly in these times. And I will say that my time here, I'm at UCSF today, actually. I come here still a day a week or so and use an office. And so I'm here on campus, and I find that interestingly, after coming here to campus for one of these days, in a couple of days will be 50 years. I still have the same kind of feeling as I walk in the medical sciences building. It's a great connection to what I felt like as a first year medical student way back then. So it's great to be here and great to think about the people who were supportive of me and sort of mentors and guides, and how important they were in helping to create a career that turned out to be really different in many ways than I have thought it was going to be. I also want to just say there are two things to say today that I think are important. And let me give you the first one first, and then the second in order. But the first really is I hope that everybody has had the chance to get out and vote, has mailed in a ballot or has voted. It's an extraordinarily important thing. And I grew up at a time when I was able to look in the news, on the newspaper, on TV, and see people risk their lives for the purpose of simply registering someone else to vote. And then from time to time, when I said risk their lives, are people who were murdered prominently and publicly for because they were engaged in the task of trying to see that their fellow citizens could vote. And it was made a profound impression on me. And so I will just say that I always feel that I have that it's a great privilege to be able to vote, and that I think about the people who really made my ability to vote something they're willing to risk, and in some tragic cases sacrifice their lives for. And so not to get too high horsey about it, but I just think that it's an important thing to do, and it's really important for us all to vote. So I hope everybody found the time to do that today. The second thing that I want to speak on today a bit is just the times that we find ourselves in the past 18, 20 months, really, of dealing with this pandemic and the way it affects aspects of all of our lives on a daily basis. And it really has changed our lives on a daily basis. but in particular to focus on the extraordinary burden of care that has fallen on many of you here on this call, and that you've been dealing with the extraordinary challenge of dealing with patients, the emotional drain and assault of the fact that we can't help everyone, and that we've had bad outcomes, which are always so painful, and then the extra work that's necessary at home for whatever is happening at home. I'm thinking particularly about people who are caring for young children, or who had a challenge with there not being school last year, and all of that. And then there are others who are caring for elderly parents, and just a variety of things that make home life much more stressful, and then work life much more stressful. And I just want to make sure that I acknowledge what a difficult time this has been, and also my hope that we're in a place where we're actually able to get moving forward. It was so hopeful in the spring that we look like we're moving forward. I know there's been these steps backward, but I'm hoping that we can continue to move forward. So we just wanted to begin with acknowledging that. A couple of the quick things to say. We're here at UCSF and have been up and running the whole time, in fact, at hyper speed. Our campuses, the campuses where we do undergraduate education and non-medical, non-health sciences related graduate education, have been at various stages of virtual education, almost entirely virtual for undergraduates, obviously, for the last year. They're now returning to what will be mostly in person. Mostly, I've been saying about 85% of it will be in person. So they'll be mostly in person. And 2 of our campuses have started. The other 7 undergraduate campuses are starting with the quarter system in about 10 days. And so that's, we'll have the experience of welcoming students back, getting started again, and then moving forward in this new balance. And so we that's a challenge that we think about every minute, and it's begun reasonably well, honestly, at Berkeley and Merced, but we know we're going to keep our eyes and ears tuned to doing everything we can to make it safe and effective at our other campuses as well. And then another thing that's happening, that something we rolled out last month, is a new plan for community campus safety. This was an extensive plan that we spent months working on this. We had 2 symposia. We had input actually from people representing thousands of students and faculty and staff and alumni and other stakeholders. But under the new model, a multidisciplinary team of police and mental health professionals and social service providers, police accountability boards, and other personnel will work together to try to prioritize the well-being of the entire UC community. There are new measures in place to ensure accountability and transparency in how we approach campus safety, and there'll be real-time platforms to empower anyone to provide immediate feedback on interactions with campus safety staff. So we're doing what we can to try to elevate this to a community-wide effort to make us all safe and to have us all feel the respect that we're due. So that's something else that's happening these days. It was released in August, and actually the system-wide committees are just coming together this month in September. But that's another big change that we're looking at as we head into the 2021-22 academic year. I'd say that given the headwinds that we have faced, the challenges that came to us, things that we hadn't heard of or thought of really even a couple of years ago, have really upended our lives. And I know everyone has really leaned into this, and it's been costly and something that we will look back on, perhaps wishing it hadn't happened. But I think that the efforts that you and others have put forward to try to keep us safe and to move us forward have been really tremendous. And I just wanted to express my gratitude to you for that. And then actually I look forward very much to hearing your questions and things that we might talk about that help us as we plan for the future. So with that, Dr. Reddy, perhaps back over to you.
Thank you.
All right. VOG sounded like there. So
let's see if I can fix the sci-fi effect.
Okay. I think we're sounding better now.
Great.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Drake. That's wonderful to hear. I think one of the questions that came up was if you could share with us your personal journey and what got you to do leadership and kind of get into work the way you have.
Yeah, thanks. I back in the day, I decided I wanted to be a medical doctor. I thought that would be a really good thing to do. Again, when my father was a medical doctor, that was terrific. He had a part of his practice was an office in the house. When we lived in New Jersey, the dining room was converted into an office where he'd see people from the neighborhood. And he did that during residency. And I didn't know he was doing residency when he left, but I know in the evenings he would see people in this part of the house. And I was fascinated by, the hypodermic needles boiling on the stove and the stethoscope. And I had a microscope where we looked at slides and things. And so that just growing up, that seemed like a great thing. And two other things that were important to me. I was asthmatic. Everybody in the house, my parents smoked, and for whatever reason, there was back in the day, but I had significant asthma, and the emergency room really was inside the refrigerator for me. We had the epinephrine and syringes and things, and without belaboring it, I had the experience as a 5-year-old, as a 4-year-old, 6-year-old, of having an attack and going to wake my father up, and then having him go downstairs, boil some things up, and then I get an injection. And I don't know how many of you have suffered with this. I hope not many, but you go from your entire world being focused on being able to breathe. I mean, that's all you're thinking about, to being like pretty much okay in about 2 minutes. And so I was really, in a subconscious way, really schooled in the power of medical care to make a difference, and you could really do something that helped people. And I think that also sort of subliminally, I appreciated how I hated bothering, like waking my dad up, in the middle of the night, but how he didn't seem to mind, and how actually he seemed to be grateful to be able to help. It wasn't like, oh, I'll do it in the morning, or stop bothering me. It was like, oh, this is something we need to do. And the something that we needed to do really helped me. And I just think that was all sort of internalized. So I never thought about a real job other than going to medical school and being a medical doctor. And then I liked the science work in school. That was fun. And I was involved in student government when I was in high school. And I liked that. That was actually terrific fun. That was something I liked doing. So I had to wear a tie on Fridays, and I gave talks and things, and whatever. So that was fun. I was 16. That was fun. And but it wasn't a job. So the job was really going to medical school and having a practice and being a doctor. And then when I was here, I met faculty members who suggested that I think about a career in academic medicine. And I had no idea what that was. So you got a doctor, you got a shingle, you hung it up and you saw people. But I had people, I did some research, and in doing the research, we had like an advisory panel, and people like Holly Smith, who many of you will know. I met Holly Smith when I was a medical student, and he and a guy named George Brecker, who was the chair of hematology, said, "Gee, you ought to think about an academic career. That would be a fun thing." And I liked what I was doing in the research. I liked working with my colleagues, and so that became a pathway that I hadn't really thought of. And then opportunities opened for me to stay here at UCSF, except for my time in the East. And so I had wonderful colleagues, wonderful opportunity, and I really loved my work kind of every day. I felt it was hard. I didn't wake up. I felt there was pressure to do a good job. It wasn't coasting, but it was rewarding and engaging. And I really, I don't want to say it's in the wrong way, but I loved all aspects of it. I loved seeing patients. I loved working with and teaching students. I enjoyed very much the research and my research colleagues. So it was a real dream career for me. And then this was such a wonderful, growing, exciting, future forward-looking place. And so that was great. What happened? Well, then where did I go wrong? How did I deviate? the actual story is that since I knew people like Holly and others, people who were in leadership positions when I joined the faculty, I found myself asked to be on committees with them too early. So before I was 30, I would be on these different committees with people who were roughly a generation older than I was, but I'd known them now for many years. And then that led to me being more involved with the administrative side of the house. And so I kind of did these things in parallel and did sort of institutional work on behalf of UCSF as UCSF, and then my patient and research and teaching work. And that led to me getting a call to see if I'd be interested in being the Vice President for Health Affairs, which I did, although I kept teaching and research here at UCSF while I worked part-time in Oakland doing that. And that led to me working with the university hierarchy and then the opportunity to be the chancellor at Irvine. And then that really sort of changed my focus from health sciences to the broader enterprise. And then here we are. So long story, but anyway, that was the devious, circuitous path, and it's all been good.
That's wonderful to hear. And I think one of the questions that comes up for me with leadership roles in general is, how do you stay optimistic, seeing all of the different vantage points you're seeing at your level with intersections of the private sector, government, academia, and all of the difficulties that each of those can pose?
Well, I appreciate it. I hope I said and repeat that the career that I always felt that the career I had was a real privilege, that this was I got to work with really great people doing great things, and what a blessing that is. And so that's kind of been at the core of it. I'll say that it's not, there's no free lunch though, so there's work involved, and so we deal with things that are difficult and challenging. We deal with things that are tragic, and I always just wanted to try to be engaged and present and do what I could in whatever circumstance I was in to try to make it better. When we came on, they were playing the old Beatles song "Hey Jude," and it said try to make it better, so in treating a patient, you try to take that information in and work on behalf of the patient to help their life be better. When working on issues with employment, et cetera, we work to try to make the world better for our coworkers. Or when working with students, we try to make that better. So it really is trying to engage in a way that allows you to make things work better. And the again, privilege I've had is over time, I've been able to see things that we did turn into things that were like good things. And that some of them were things that came, where I was the PI, or that it wasn't such a thing before. And so I have to feel that that made a difference, and that's gratifying. That we have the Prime program here now, and that was came out of my office when I was at OP at the Vice President for Health Affairs, and it was a coming together of a bunch of ideas, and then turned into a program. And it's just gratifying to see here we are now, 18 years later, and it was expanded and reauthorized by the legislature again. And so it feels, you get the idea that you can actually apply yourself to something, and then actually something good can come from it. And that's very rewarding.
Wonderful, thank you. And a question came in: what was the biggest lesson you would pass on to new faculty at UCSF to launch a successful academic career?
Yeah, a couple of things. One is one step at a time, moving forward. Come to work every day and do a good job is my main advice. And what happened for me, what will happen for you, is that doors will open. Doors you don't know are there will open as you continue to move forward. So that's been my experience. And that happened really over and over again. I didn't fill out an application for, let's say, this job or my last job or that job before that, or going all the way back. It just turned out that I was in a place where someone called and said, gee, this is something you might want to think about. And I think that is overwhelmingly what we see. And then as we appreciate the privilege and do our best, we create a really positive, good world about us. I think that supports us. I was helped very much by mentors and guides. And I mentioned a couple. I'll mention Jim O'Donnell, who's somebody who not many of you would have known, but was in my department and was such a great guide and sponsor for me. And so I think that those personal relationships with people who are a step or two ahead, who can help guide you, I think those are critically important. And then you develop like lifelong loving friendships too, which is another great benefit of that. And so I really would stress that human connection and helping to guide all of us through our lives.
Thank you very much, President Drake. It's been wonderful having you here, and we really appreciate you sharing your wisdom with us.
Great to see all of you, and just really proud, honestly, of the work that you do. Really excited. I love telling people that I had the privilege of training and working at UCSF. It's a point of great personal pride, and I just very excited and proud of the work that everyone is doing on a daily basis to make us a safer community and a better world. So great work. Good to see you. Take care.
Likewise. Thank you very much.